democratic, and prosperous hemisphere. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Camilleri, and I recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Nichols, and we're going to start with Venezuela. We're 4 days away, probably from the most important event in the recent history of that country. Edmundo is the opposition. He is leading the polls by 30 points, according to what we have access to. That means around 3 million votes. You and I know that President Maduro is in the business of power, and his intention is not to concede, but he is at a major disadvantage. So my question to you is, do you know what type of fraud they are planning to put together? What are they planning to do? Stuff the ballots, change the starmatics, el voto asistido, asking for a photo of your ballot. I mean, whatever. What info do you have? Do you recognize first and foremost that they're going to try to steal the election? Yes or no?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Well, we've already seen important steps that the Maduro side has taken, disqualifying 2 earlier opposition candidates, harassing opposition campaign workers, arresting them, vandalizing vehicles, punishing people that provide support. So we've already seen.
So let's put that aside. I understand, I agree with you that they tried, but now we're in the show. So how are they going to try to steal the show? What info do you have?
Well, I think the key barometer early on will be turnout for the vote. As you note, polls indicate a significant lead for the opposition. We expect that if they're able to turn out their voters, they should perform well.
But what info do you have? What are the schemes they're trying to put together? Do you have that info? Because something they're planning. What is it that they're planning? I cannot figure it out because there are many different ways, but I want to ask the State Department. What are you guys expecting?
I don't have any specific information on what the Maduro side might do. What I will say is that this election represents a major opportunity for Venezuela to return to the community of nations and to have an opportunity for a better future.
But you know that that's not Maduro's plan. I mean, they're in the business of power. What do you mean conceding victory? You're giving power away. No, that's not part of the agenda. So since we know that is not part of the agenda, so what can we do in order to, can we talk to Lula? Can we put more pressure? I mean, we are the United States, and you guys are in charge. What can we do to send the message to Maduro after, let's say, polls are going to close at 7 o'clock at night? I mean, I've covered this before as a journalist. So let's say by 2 o'clock in the morning, they're still counting. We know. So what are we going to do in those key hours? We meaning the United States, you, the State Department. You're going to pick up the phone, and what are you guys going to do?
We continue to engage with partners from around the world to maintain a united
front. Who are
front.
those partners? Tell me. Who are you calling as an ally to call Maduro and say, you got to go, guy?
Well, I think we're like-minded with countries throughout the hemisphere: Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Argentina,
Have you enlisted
Chile.
them already? Have you been talking to them and saying, hey, I need you to be on standby?
During the OAS General Assembly in Asunción, Paraguay, we had the opportunity to talk to more than a dozen partners from around the hemisphere about key issues, including our collective support for democracy in Venezuela. Secretary Blinken engaged the dozen colleagues during the ministerial meeting of America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity.
Mr. Nichols, I understand everything you've told me, and I'm on your side. I just want to hear something more forceful, that we, the United States, in this magnificent moment of biblical proportions for the history of the Venezuelans, that we are going to be a little bit more forceful. but I hear what you're telling me. Is there anything else that you want to share with us? I have another question. I know that Maduro, when he realized that he's 3 million votes down, he calls the Biden administration through Jorge Rodriguez, who is one of the top lieutenants next to Maduro. Can you share with us what was discussed? That happened, earlier this month. They picked up the phone, they called Biden administration. What did they say?
So we did have a conversation with some of the Maduro side representatives. They expressed their unhappiness about
what? That they're going to lose?
about the fact that we have not lifted sanctions.
Okay, yeah, right.
And we expressed our disappointment at the disqualification of earlier candidates and our hope that this would be a competitive election. And
what did they say to that? Of course,
I'm not going to get into all of the back and forth that we had in a negotiation, but I will say
was
that
something negotiated.
We value the channel of communication that we have, and it's important as we go forward to be able to have conversations between our two governments, between our government and the Maduro
But you
side.
cannot share with us anything that was spoken specifically or negotiated in that.
I'm not going to get into the
All right.
contents
What
of
about in
diplomatic
Qatar last year? There was also a discussion between Biden administration officials and the Maduro regime. Was a transition discussed?
As part the pending phase of the Barbados agreement talked about the next phase would be some type of a civic pact and a discussion of what would happen from the time of the election until the January inauguration of whomever the victor is in the election. All of those discussions are still pending.
Moving forward, the morning after, Maduro comes out and says, I won by 50.315. What are we going to do if we know that they stole the elections just like they have done before? What's going to be our first reaction?
Well, under Venezuelan electoral law, their electoral council has until the following day to announce the results, and then August 2nd, they're supposed to publish detailed results. There'll be international observers on the ground. There'll be thousands of domestic poll watchers from the opposition as well as from parties that support the Maduro side. We want to look, and there'll be international diplomats present. We want to look at all the information. We're not going to rush to judgment, and then we will make a decision.
All right, and then we'll be in touch because, as you said, we both agree on the fact that the Venezuelans deserve to be free and choose their own leaders. Now, I just want to have a little bit more time. After that, we have to. Well, I'm trying to be courteous to my fellow members of the committee. All right, Vice President Kamala has been in charge of the border. Her visits have been considered, I'm not saying it, the headlines say it, that a failure. Right there you have CNN, that it's a pretty friendly news outlet for the Democrats, saying that the problem is now much bigger. That's not a very good headline to Vice President Harris. She goes to Guatemala, and then she implies that the country is corrupt in this press conference that she puts together with Giammattei, who was the president at the time. And she tells the Guatemalans right there on the air, hey, don't come, don't come. Then she was assigned to go to El Salvador, where real progress, we met in El Salvador, has been made to address the root causes of migration. So in other words, Madam Harris is now in a very peculiar position. Probably everything indicates that she's going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. And I just want to ask you, what grade would you give her? According to the headlines, she gets an F in the job or in the assignment that she was given by the president to control or to be the border czar. What grade do you give her?
So Vice President Harris launched the U.S. root causes strategy to tackle the drivers of irregular migration by improving conditions in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras so people do not feel compelled to leave their homes. She leads the implementation of this strategy. The root causes strategy is on track to provide $4 billion in U.S. investment to the region over 4 years.
Mr. Nichols, she hasn't even gone to the border.
So
I mean, just give me a little better explanation.
arrivals at the U.S. border from the countries in Central America are down dramatically
But
over
that
the
was
last
5
4
minutes
years.
ago. I mean, that happened 5 minutes ago during 20, 21, 22, 23. We know reality. I mean, I just want to get some truth statements from you. I mean, why do you think that she failed so dismally at this job that she was given? Why didn't she pay any attention to the southern border be one of the most important topics affecting the national security of this country? Do you have any explanation?
I think this has been a dramatic success. We've seen double-digit drops in arrivals at the U.S. southern border from every country we measure, up to 96% drops. Even the Central American country that's had the lowest drop is still a 26% drop over the last year. Arrivals at their lowest level since before this administration took office. Vice President has mobilized over $5.2 billion in commitments for investment in the region, generating over 70,000 jobs.
You are a great
through
soldier.
Private sector.
I think you're doing a great
investment
job.
in the region.
You're doing a great job. I think that they are really definitely going to reward you for your assistance in this hearing. Let me just go to Colombia now. There are many accusations right now about President Petro's personal life. I may be tough, but I do not want to pry into anyone's private life, much less in public, all right? But the issue is that he is constantly late and has to cancel many meetings. Not only that, he has missed 150 public engagements during his presidency. Are you aware of this?
I hadn't seen that specific statistic.
150 public engagements. In the last week, during the 20 de Julio, July 20th parade, which celebrated an important date for the Colombians, that parade had to start without the president because he was more than 3 hours late. Recently, even more damaging, I think, for his image, he was spotted walking hand in hand with a woman who was not his wife, who appears to be Lady Linda Yepes, who is a trans woman who was a host on the program Buen Dia in Colombia through RCN, one of the main networks in Colombia. When did that happen? During the inauguration of Jose Raul Mulino in Panama. The pictures are there for everyone to see. He has admitted that he has been drunk at many public events. So my question to you is this. Do you think that, that what I just mentioned and the concerns from some Colombians is affecting these dalliances and this new ways of conducting his private life are affecting his ability to govern? What do you think about that?
Our relationship is with the nation of Colombia. It goes back 2 centuries. They are some of our closest allies in the world. We work with them across a whole host of issues.
Mr. Nichols, but he's the one conducting the ship.
Any single individual, and we will focus on our government-to-government relationship with
Aren't you
Colombia.
concerned about that erratic behavior from one of our top allies?
I'm not in a position to verify or to comment on the specific allegations.
So why don't we then, after the hearing, we could have a conversation, or we can continue talking about this, because this is just not, this type of behavior is not very presidential for an ally as close as you just mentioned. Now I'm going to yield back so I can give an opportunity to gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Stanton, and thank you very much for your patience.